Hey, beautiful people. Hope you're having an excellent day. You know, the late, great W.C. Fields was famous for saying, "It ain't what they call ya, it's what you answer to." I need to work on my Fields impression. But anyway, I want to talk about what people call you and what you answer to, what's true and what isn't, what's just about perception. As a public figure, I've been called everything throughout my public life. But recently, two things have come up that really I don't remember I've ever been called this before. One is being called a sexist, and the other is being called a racist. And I had to really think about, am I going to answer to that or not? Um, Anybody that knows me can tell you, if you call me on something that is true, it may hurt my feelings initially, but I'll give me a few minutes and I'll get back to you, and if I need to change something, I will, and I'll say, all right, you know what, lesson learned, thank you, got it. The sexism is coming from one individual, the accusation coming from one individual, very close to me, and it's put our relationship through some changes. But it's also made me think: is that true? I mean, do I talk down to women? And honest to God, I really can't think of any instance where I have. It's certainly not my intention to. With that one, I think that's just something that somebody's having to work through. They clearly are perceiving a situation wrong, because even the two people that I was told I've said sexist things to, I've asked both of them, and the answer is no. So this is in the mind of a person, and sorry they see things that way. It's just not the truth. It's certainly not my truth. If it was something I needed shoring up, I would go to the next level with it. On this one, I'm not answering to that, and I believe we'll get through it, and they'll see the light, and that one will be okay. The other one came up when I was out of town recently at a forum in which we were discussing, among other things, racism and how to deal with it, and the problem of racism in our country. And this one particular session we were in was specifically about white supremacy in our culture and how to deal with it. And it's a mostly African American group. But the man who was teaching this, who I just met briefly the night before, seems to be a brilliant man, definitely schooled in how to teach people about white privilege. And so I was certainly open to anything he had to say. In his opening comments, he talked about how his father had taught him racism and how he'd used the N-word and how that had affected him when he was a kid. And when it was time to talk, I probably shouldn't have, and that's what I want to talk about in this video. But I said, I just want to say for the record that that has not been, your experience has not been every white person's experience. I certainly didn't learn racism in my home. I certainly never used the N-word. Brother Jimmy would have taken a belt to me if I'd done that. And I understand how wrong it is of somebody to say, oh, a white guy to say, oh, I can use the N-word because I have black friends. That's BS as far as I'm concerned. I've got lots of black friends, and I've never said it, never would. But in my time to speak, I said I don't doubt that white privilege exists, but if I've ever used it intentionally to my advantage, I'm not aware of it. So what I was trying to say is, if you can make me aware of white privilege in places where I don't see it, I'm open to learning. But I made the mistake of using the word oblivious, and there were people, both black and white, in that room who misunderstood what I said and took me to task. One individual wouldn't even look at me and just referred to him back there and asked the guy why he didn't confront my racist statement. And I'm thinking, what? Racist? Me? And then I was told that to even say you're not racist is a form of racism. And I thought, wow, okay, this is a whole new experience. I mean, I've spent my entire life in ministry fighting racism. If you did a ledger in my ministry of the people I've helped through pastoring, people of color would outnumber 10 to 1 white people that I've helped. And so I thought, man, I must I really got a blind spot here apparently. And then the subject went on to other things, and this person came back and said, why is it that you want to rebuke the white guy in the room? That's a clear example of white privilege. And suddenly, I'm the example of white privilege. I thought, wow, this is, I went to a lot of expense to fly out here, and I had no idea I was going to be the subject of discussion. I should have kept my mouth shut. And then there was a white woman who began to challenge me about what I'd said, and I said, no, that's not what I'm saying. To which she actually told me to shut up and said, you, just because you're a man, you don't have the right to shut me up as a woman. And I thought, sweet Jesus, that's not what I'm doing. This is the second time in 2 weeks I've heard that I'm a sexist. Really? Okay. And so I was told to be quiet. So, I shut up. And then the conversation kept going. And as I was being discussed, I thought, I'm open-minded and I'm certainly teachable. Scripture says the servant of the Lord must not strive, but must be apt to teach. But I really don't think, I'm going to have to say at this point, I'm not ready for that teachable moment that y'all are saying that I need. And so it was no big deal, and I left, and Ken and I started our vacation earlier than we had planned. Several people texted me and asked if I was okay. I said, yeah, I'm okay. I've never been called a racist before, especially by people that I really think a lot of. So I'm having to process a minute. Give me a minute and I'll be fine. And again, I thought about, it's not what they call you, it's what you answer to. And I'm sorry that people interpreted that I was saying I was oblivious to white privilege. That's not what I was saying. I was saying I am aware of it and have never used it to my advantage, but maybe I have some blind spots. And so the group, at least two people in particular, took it on themselves to deliver me of that blind spot, and they did it in a way I would have never in a million years spoken to them. But it is what it is. And what it's taught me in these days since this happened is I thought, there's just some conversations you can't have. There's some things men can't say to women. A man can't say to a woman, those menstrual cramps are in your head, or if you were really in good shape, you wouldn't have labor pains. There's just certain things that men cannot say to women because they are not women. They don't empathize with women. They just need to be quiet. I realize that there are some things as a white man I cannot say in a setting like that because people aren't hearing me. They're hearing every white person they've ever heard speak, and suddenly I'm being painted with the same brushstroke as a Donald Trump, and I'm like, no. I've worked too hard all my life with civil rights and being a groundbreaker in certain areas. You're not gonna put me in that category. I will not answer to that. Sorry. But I also realize that there's a reason why Ecclesiastes says there's a time to speak and a time to be silent, and sometimes there's conversations you just can't be a part of, and I understand it because I have straight friends who consider themselves straight allies who don't realize they say really homophobic and insulting things fairly regularly, and they're oblivious to it. Somebody that loves me very much when I first came out said, oh, are you going to change your logo to a Bible and a feather boa? And I thought, wow, really? I'm not a cross-dresser. Never owned a feather boa, never wanted to. I'm not a drag queen. But whatever, I'm sure this person felt like they were in on the joke, and because they're so open-minded they could say something. Even just last week, somebody I love very much took me to lunch and said one of the most insulting things about gay people anybody's ever said to, and since I've been out. And she was completely unaware of it, and because I know she loves me and loves gay people. And I just sort of turned the other cheek. Soft answer turns away wrath. Father, forgive them. They don't know what they do. I don't want to be the politically correct Nazi who's correcting everybody. So when I know people's hearts are in the right place, I just let them slide on some things. Even some minister friends of mine who will say, our church is gay affirming, but their church really isn't, because they say things like, at our church, we accept drug addicts and alcoholics and prostitutes and homosexuals. And I always want to say, I know you mean well, I know you think you're being really open, but you can't put gay people in that same category because sexual orientation is about your wiring. It's not about your activity. I was gay for decades before I was ever with a man. And if I had gone to my grave celibate, I would still be gay. Just like straight people don't become heterosexual because they have sex with the opposite sex. That's just how they're wired. And if they never had sex, they'd still be straight. Um, I've already written about that in my book, and I've said it in sermons, and I've said it on these videos. So I don't want to just keep saying it all the time. So sometimes I'm just quiet. During my little 15 minutes of fame when I came out, I did a lot of interviews, but I also turned down a lot. And one that I turned down was for the Dr. Phil show. And they wanted me to come on that show with, I won't say his name, but there was a very high-profile evangelical leader that was caught. He was outed by a gay hooker that he'd been going to for 2 years. And so he got outed, pastored a huge, huge church, one of the largest evangelical churches in the country. And but then he went to some counseling, and then he said he wasn't gay anymore, which any gay person can tell you is a crock. There's just, I mean, if you go to a gay hooker for 2 years, guess what? You're gay. There's no Q in the LGBTQ for you. You're not questioning. You are. That's what you are. But if they asked me to do it now, I would probably do it. But at the time, I just didn't want to go in there and argue with this guy. But the producer said to me when she was talking to me about it, she said, well, you know, his church accepts gay people. And I said, no, not really. If you're accepting gay people with the intention of changing them, you're not really accepting them. I've been asked this in so many interviews. People have said, if you had any control over your orientation, would you change it? And I always say, no, I wouldn't, because then I wouldn't be who I am. And I have to believe that if God told Jeremiah, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, that he had to know me, and he had to make me just like I am. And if I hadn't been born gay, I would have never challenged the religious system, and I might have bad taste. And so, no, I'm happy. So, you know, if you want to pray for me, that's fine, but don't pray the gay away, because first of all, it's not going to happen, and secondly, I don't want it to happen. I'm very happily married, and I understand. I mean, I got friends and even family members on Facebook that they'll like on anything I put on except a picture of Ken and me, and they will never acknowledge that I came out. They'll never acknowledge that I'm just as married as they are, just as legally married as they are. And, you know, I get it. I get their passive-aggressive protest that they've been doing for 6 years, and whatever. It's fine. I just let it go. I want to say, if you're that uncomfortable, just unfriend me, because I'm not changing, and I'm not going to not live my life in truth. The truth makes you free, and I am a free man. But I've also, I learned something from this experience. Since it was jarring. I'd never been called racist before, so I didn't even have a neuropath in my brain for it. I was like, wow, what? And I really thought about it. I thought, man, are you racist and don't know it? And I have to come back again, like Mr. Fields, and say, no, I'm not. And I'm sure there are people of color who would hear this and say, yeah, you may be, just like there might be straight friends of mine that would just swear up and down they're not homophobic, but they are a little bit. So maybe everybody on some level is a little bit racist, a little bit homophobic, a little bit xenophobic or whatever. Maybe that is true. But I'm not intentionally that. And anytime I've ever seen people who are intentionally that, I've always challenged them about it. At great personal expense to myself, I might add. And I'm not saying that as some kind of badge of honor. I'm just saying that's just the truth. I'm not sexist. I'm not racist. I'm just not. Can I learn a little bit more? Yeah, we all can. But there's a way that you enlighten somebody that keeps them from being defensive. And you know, I was really uncomfortable that day, and I left. And I'm, you know, I don't know what my future will be with that organization. I'm not sure exactly. But it's not because my feelings are hurt. It's just because I realize, wow, y'all are in a conversation that I can't have, and I don't think you want me in. So, but it's all good. I love everybody. I forgive everybody. And I've just learned that when some conversations come up, it's just my time to be quiet. But I do appreciate you stopping and listening to this for a minute. Hope you have an excellent day.